Thank you very much for that wonderful speech. Now, I have a question, and it's regarding the two key words of the series, reviving the Muslim youth. Now, you said in your speech that there will be a time when Muslims are doing the acts of the people of paradise, but they'll be among the first to go to hell. So I think, Dr. Bilal, is that the problem with the Muslim youth is in the fact that we can't operationalize loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know how to do that. It's not as easy as doing the rituals and fasting and praying, because we do that. But there isn't a connection. We don't know how to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we are doing the rituals, but we seem to be very distant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet are not central in our lives. We're caught in the current, and we don't know how to become Muslim youth, the leaders of the future. So I think it's really important to define reviving and operationalizing that for us, because alhamdulillah, we seem to be doing it as the two steps that you talked about. We are performing the obligatory act, and every once in a while we seem to be in a good mood, and you perform the voluntary acts of worship. But despite that, we seem to be not the Muslim youth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet envisioned us to be. So I think there's a problem in operationalizing that. So I'd like to hear your comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, the issue of practically developing the love of Allah in our lives, it has to be from an understanding of the principles of the religion, not the cultural practice of the principles of religion, because this already, as you said, you're doing. This is something handed down, and you are in a cultural habit and a custom. Whereas for salah or zakah or whatever to be taught now from the perspective of the principles behind it. Why did Allah prescribe salah? What are the real goals of zakah? To understand, to practice Islam with understanding, as opposed to just blind rituals that we do because our parents did it. I think this is the missing link, that in general, Islam is taught as a cultural standard, as opposed to taught with an understanding. And that is why, for example, you may have a sister wearing hijab and spandex clothing. Spandex meaning it's skin tight from top to bottom. She may as well have had her clothing sprayed on with a can. You know, you have a spray can, spray it on, black or blue or green, and she's got a scarf on her head. She obviously doesn't understand what hijab is. Clearly, not understood. But it's culturally, you know, as women, Muslim, you should cover your head. So she covers her head. And maybe she makes salah and all these things too. Not realizing that salah in this clothing is not acceptable. Aura is not covered. Some get from their parents, okay, when you have to pray, you get a skirt that you put on. When you're finished, you take it back off. See, these are cultural understandings of Islam. It is a set of inherited cultural baggage. And that's why when many people go to the West, you know, except for the few that Allah may protect, most people, they go there and then they just throw the whole thing off. Because they never understood why anyway. You listen to those people, go to apostatesfromislam.com. Yeah, they have a website. Go to apostatesfromislam.com and you see, why did these guys leave, these men and women, why did they leave Islam? All the same things. They used to make us do this, they used to do that, and it wasn't Islam. They were being forced to do things which had nothing to do with Islam. It's just culture. So they didn't understand Islam. And so it was easy for them to cast it off. So what needs to be done, in my view, is that Islam needs to be retaught from an understanding and also from the earliest ages. That the educational system, the motto of Islamic Online University is changing the nation through education. That the educational system itself needs to be revamped. Starting from grade 1, kindergarten, revamped. So that Islam is presented in an integrated way. This was the vision of the founding of IIUM, integration. But it wasn't really achieved. It really wasn't achieved. And the Islamic schools that are out there, again, attempt to bring Muslims together, have an administration, etc. But the real integration of Islamic teachings in all aspects of the educational system is missing. So Islam is one thing, and then the other courses, maths, English, etc., is something else. So there is this view. So when people graduate, even from these Islamic schools, most of them don't want to go and do Islamic education. They want to be everything else. So we have a set of traditions, a mode of education, etc., which needs to be tackled, from a very fundamental way. Now, okay, as students here on the university, you can't change what's happening in all the schools. What can you do right now, here and now? What can you do? Well, I would say that you should begin to question and try to understand your Islam in such a way that you are driven to want to do what Islam asks you to do because you realize and you've understood that this is something you need to do. Because Allah didn't prescribe all of these things for us to make our lives difficult. It's easier if you didn't have to pray, didn't have to fast, you didn't have to, it's easier. Life is easier. So why? Allah made our lives difficult, complicated in that sense. No. He prescribed these things because in each and every one of them, there is something that we need. Allah doesn't benefit from our fasting, our prayers, etc. We all know this. So then who is the one who's supposed to benefit? Us. So we need to go back and understand where the benefit lies and work on achieving that benefit. And not be satisfied until you're on the road, on the path. You're feeling the salah is making a difference. It's supposed to change us, but it doesn't. Why? Because we're not in touch with it, really. We're linked up with the ritual, but we don't really understand what we're doing. Our mind can be elsewhere, and So we need a rethinking. We need another approach to understanding the deen. This is what we need. I mean, just simply, for example, because it's a huge topic, and I should really just be giving short answers, so this is a bit extended. But just to give an idea, how we deal with wudu. Most of us think of salah as beginning when we get in takbir to tahrim, and we start off with Allahu Akbar, and we start with the salah. But actually, the salah began with wudu. Because there's no salah without wudu. So it's stuck right there. So how we deal with the wudu is going to determine the salah. So if we deal with wudu when the time for salah comes, for example, how we deal with wudu. Time for the iqamah, we go running into the bathroom, splash, 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 water all over the place, and you run into the masjid and get up. Oh, come on. No. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said that when the person makes wudu properly, the sins that their mouth expressed, their eyes saw, their hands did, their feet did, are washed off with the drops of water. What is that saying? It's saying that wudu is a deep spiritual cleansing. Removing sin. We have to look back and say, can we say that about our wudu? If we can't, it means something is missing. So if the wudu is not the way it is supposed to be, then what about the salah? Hadith wala haraj. Yeah? You can say anything about this now. What's happening in salah? We're thinking about this and that, checking our watches, you know. Imam, why doesn't he hurry up? Why is he so slow? Out of touch. So this is where we need to go. Go back and put things in their place. Inshallah. So go ahead.